Hey there, everyone. Art Burns here, wishing you well today. I hope that you're having a great day. I hope the day is treating you well, but more importantly, I hope that you are treating you well today because this is very, very important for us, as we've seen with just abundant research showing that compassion for ourselves is one of the most powerful things that we can do for ourselves, for our emotional resilience, for the stress reduction, for our mental, physical, and emotional health on so many different levels. And so I hope that you're showing yourself some self-compassion today. And so I want to talk about how there is a neurological basis for compassion, and how self-compassion really does impact everyone around you, right? And so I'm going to use first of all, you see I got my favorite T-shirt on, so we're going to talk about some brain science, okay? And I'm going to tell you about something called mirror neurons and empathic resonance, okay? These are fascinating subjects to me, and I hope that you find them as well. First, the story about how these these mirror neurons were discovered, because I think it's a fascinating and just really kind of hilarious story. Back in 1992, at the University of Parma in Italy, some neuroscientists were researching and doing experiments to find and map out the pleasure centers of the brain. Okay, so what they wanted to see was when you experience a positive, pleasurable stimulus, where in your brain did that light up? What part of your brain became active, right? And so the way they did this was they used some monkeys who I hope didn't suffer, and they had these monkeys kind of wired up. Their brains were wired up with like electrodes and stuff, right? And so that they could kind of measure where the brains became sort of electrically stimulated and active during the pleasurable experiences, right? And so one day, apparently, this story is so great. I've heard it so many different times, and this is the best, the most detailed version. Is that apparently the study was being done in the middle of the summer, right? It was very hot. And so one day, one of the researchers came into the lab eating an ice cream cone, right? And the monkey on the other side of the glass or whatever saw the researcher eating this ice cream cone, and immediately the monkey's brain lit up as though it was eating something that was very tasty. Okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it was a banana, but I don't know for sure. Maybe it had something to do with like sort of the hand shape and the kind of thing. Made the because I don't know if the monkey ever tasted ice cream to know what it tasted like, but the monkey felt pleasure. Okay, so not just like kind of it's different from saying like, ooh, I want something like that. No. The monkey was experiencing, on a neurological level, the monkey was experiencing pleasure. Okay, and this is a big deal, right? And it's such a big deal, of course, that these researchers then went in a frenzy and they started studying this every single way they could, right? And of course they then studied according to humans as well as monkeys, and ultimately they did the same kind of studies, not only with the pleasure centers of the brain, but they also did it with the pain centers of the brain. Okay, something that's called the pain matrix, right, which lights up when your body feels something painful, right? So like when you stub your toe, like there's a part of your brain that activates, right, that is associated with that pain. And what they have found is that when someone is watching someone go through some pain like that, right? So if you watch someone, bang their foot or stub their toe or what have you, your brain, the mirror neurons in your brain light up as though you are experiencing the stubbing of your toe as well, right? And so this is really, really fascinating. And this is something that they've come to call empathic resonance, right? Is to say that, that we feel that we are connected with this energetic resonance with each other, right? Now, of course, this is something that is not new to people who study contemplative practices and philosophies such as Buddhism and Taoism and these kind of things. Like these, thousands of years, Buddhists and Taoists and the like have been talking about how we are connected in this way, right? So it's more the sense that science is kind of finally catching up to these philosophies, right? Which is pretty fantastic, right? But at this point, it's measurable. It's they've been able to see it and measure it and document it in laboratory settings, right, under the scientific process, right? Which is really kind of awesome, right? Again, and this basically is the neurological foundation for empathy, and showing that our brains are literally wired for empathy and compassion, right? Because when we see someone suffer and we suffer with them, that's the name of compassion, right? Like compassion, the word compassion comes from the Latin compassus, which means to suffer with, right? So it's literally the thing, right? Like that's what compassion is, right? And so how does this resonance, in what way does this resonance kind of impact self-compassion, or how does self-compassion impact this resonance, right? So there's a wonderful, amazing doctor who is doing some like incredible work, and has been for some time now. It's not just brand new, so for like 20 years or something like that. Dr. Kristen Neff has been basically devoted her entire career to self-compassion, which, I mean, how beautiful is that? I strongly recommend you look her up. Kristen Neff, Neff. Okay, she's got plenty of stuff on YouTube. If you Google self compassion, you'll come to her website, which gives you kind of amazing resources about self compassion. There's actually a test that you can take on her website showing how self compassionate you are. I scored very highly. I think I got like a 4.5 out of 5 or something like that. So go take that test. It's really cool, and it'll tell you a lot about how you kind of process self compassion, and if to what degree you are processing self-compassion. And again, according to Dr. Neff's research, and as she says it, the research is being published at rates that she can't even keep up with. Okay, so there is such an abundance of information out there showing these days that this is such a real thing, that self-compassion is so beneficial to our well-being. Okay, stress levels, emotional resilience, health, just mental, physical, emotional health, just, on and on goes the list. And you can read about that on her website and in many of the links that she shares there. But the thing about that is, right, and again, according to her research, right, this is kind of really fascinating, statistic. It's something like 80%, or I have it right. No, I'm sorry, 60% of people are, who kind of took place in this research study with Dr. Neff. 60%, claim to feel compassion for others, right, but not for themselves. Right, 60% of people, right, and I think that's kind of a low number. It feels like, right, because I guess that's the people who feel compassion for others but not for themselves. I don't know how many don't feel compassion for others or for themselves, but the point is that compassion for ourselves is something that we're really, really unwilling to give up. A lot of people feel that we need to be hard on ourselves in order to kind of motivate ourselves, that we need to be hard on ourselves to keep ourselves sharp and to prevent ourselves from being soft or wimpy and stuff like that. But the evidence, again, the abundant research is showing exactly the opposite, right? The abundant research is showing that the more kind we are to ourselves, the more we are able to acknowledge our own suffering, and the more we can sense this connection to everyone else through this suffering. Which these three areas of the framework of self-compassion, according to Dr. Neff. That when we can engage in these things, we are improving ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and it's actually, it's more of a motivator, right? People who feel this self-compassion for themselves become more successful. They become more accomplished. They it's the opposite of what people feel when they hold themselves back, right? And so a lot of times I think of compassion, I think of it as, it doesn't really matter whether you're talking about self-compassion or compassion for others, right? I think it's all the same thing, and Dr. Neff has said that as well, so I feel validated in that sense. But again, the thing is that most of us aren't willing to give that self-compassion, and so I want to give you a little reason why you kind of should. Right now, remember, contemplative practitioners have been talking about this for thousands of years, of how we are connected to each other, right? So in other words, when you walk into a room, right, as Jack Kornfield says, it's just like going into a room filled with violins, right? If you pluck one string on one of those violins, they will all sound right? Which is true. I mean, I know that's true for guitars, especially. In addition to, I've never been in a room with violins, but I've been in plenty of rooms filled with acoustic guitars, and it's true. When you strum an acoustic guitar in a room full of acoustic guitars, you can hear them all resonating, right? And that's what we're talking about, right? And so when you walk into a room, right, how you are feeling, okay, how you're emotionally, kind of, your emotional status is going to be felt by all the other people in that room, right? And so when you are feeling a kindness to yourself, right, and you're feeling, a an acceptance of yourself, and you're feeling a connection to everyone else's suffering in that way, right, and mindful of it, right, when you're feeling that, other people are going to feel that as well, right? So in that sense, being compassionate for yourself is in fact being compassionate for others, right? Because by relieving your own suffering, you are going to relieve the suffering of everyone who comes into contact with you, right? Now, the other part of this, and this is my own sort of original thought here, something I talked about with a couple of my clients recently, is that a lot of people, when we feel compassion for others, right, and especially those people who can't feel it for themselves so much, right, for most people in this case, there is a certain line at which we won't wish compassion any further for someone, right? Or for certain people for whom we will not give that compassion, right? So like, okay, I can feel compassion for these people that I love, and can feel compassion for the people who are neutral in my life, but I can't feel compassion for these people, right? These people who have done bad things, these people who have hurt me, who have hurt others. I can't feel that compassion for them, right? And that's unfortunately not what compassion is all about, right? Compassion is about feeling it for everyone and everything. And that's where this becomes a really beautiful, virtuous cycle, right? Is that when we can feel compassion towards ourselves, right, then it makes it easier to feel it for even those people who have done things that are harmful, and people who we feel are, bad people, right? And this is, again, now, but here's the thing, right? When we don't feel compassion for those bad people, right, what we're doing is we're experiencing suffering, right? Because when we hold in non-compassion someone else who's done something, or maybe it's a political figure, maybe it's someone we see on the news who did something horrible and violent and stuff, when or it could be just our spouse, right? Like, who, we just, they get up our sleeve, and we just refuse to feel that compassion for them, right? When we're contemplating not feeling that compassion for them, what we're doing is we're causing ourselves suffering, right? And this is measurable. Again, like the stress hormones, and the same effect that goes through the stress response is happening in our bodies when we're not feeling compassion for certain people in our lives, right? And so when that happens, right, again, we're causing ourselves suffering. So in order for us to relieve our own suffering, right, to feel that compassion for ourselves, to be kind to ourselves, to acknowledge our suffering, and to want to relieve that suffering for ourselves, right, then we have to, or it's very helpful to feel that compassion even for those people who we feel don't deserve it, or for whom we feel it's difficult to express. Okay, and so this is what I wanted to share with you today, about how this is sort of a loop. This empathic resonance goes, it keeps going, right? So the more that we are compassionate for others, the more they are going to loop back to us, the more that we are going to loop back to them. And essentially that means, basically the way you can look at this is that when you walk into I'm sorry, kind of jumping around here, but when you walk into a room, right, you are going to impact the emotional energy of the people in that room one way or the other. It's never neutral. It's either going to be a positive impact or a negative impact. And again, the more positive impact you can have, the more that impact is going to come back to you, and the more you can feel that for yourself, the more you're going to feel it for others, and that's where this loop happens, right? And so this is why it's really, really helpful to practice these compassion exercises, right? Both for others and for ourselves. And if you would like to learn how to do this, if you'd like some information on how to practice compassion, please let me know, because I have some really easy practices, some really fun practices, and practices that will get you the results of the things that I mentioned here very, very quickly. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you have a great day. And again, I hope the day is treating you well, but I hope you are treating you well today. Take care, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye bye.